Right, so let's get back to it. Once again, we are an organisation that looks after applications into universities for over 30 different institutions across New South Wales and the ACT. Of course, we're going to talk about university entry, but before we talk about university entry, I just wanted to let you know that we are hosting a post school leaver event in Sydney on Thursday, the 12th of September, between 4 and 7:30 p.m. at, of course, Dalton House, which is situated on Elizabeth Street in Hyde Park. I hope that you come and join us. And speak to over 15 different institutions from New South Wales and Canberra. And of course, have a little nibbling, a little drink, so that you can have a bit of refreshment to, you know, get ready and talk to those universities that you may be interested in studying with. So that's Career Moves, our non-school leaver or post-school leaver event, which is happening in September. And of course, we will have all the links to register to attend on our social media channels. So let's talk about university entry now. So for those students or those potential students looking to embark on university studies, it is crucial to really take charge and thoroughly research your options, such as things like, well, what course would be your dream course? So what is it that you're wanting to study at university? Is it that this will be your first degree, so it's going to help you maybe get that next job? Is it going to just upskill you into something different that you're interested in? Is it a real career move? So these are the things you've got to think about. What is your dream course? And of course, which universities offer that course? Many universities offer similar or the same courses. So which one is the best university for you? In saying that, when you're trying to select a university that you're interested in, probably the best thing to do is go to one of their open days. They start from this weekend, going through to September. Their universities will be open and you'll be able to speak, of course, to academics, look around the campus, see if it's the right fit for you. You also need to, of course, think about what the entry requirements are for the specific or what specific criteria they have for entry. Most of the time it is, of course, your academia or academic records. So, the ATAR, if that was a couple of years ago and you still have it. It could be TAFE studies. It could be a partial university degree or a full university degree. But you need to look at if there's additional criteria, such as an interview or a test or maybe a portfolio. And will you be able to, of course, meet the entry requirements? That's always a big one. And we get asked this a lot. I mean, it's very easy for Year 12 students because they have their ATAR. But for post-school students, that's a little bit harder. So if not, if you don't meet the entry requirements, like what would be your next steps? What's your plan B? I mean, many of our institutions offer diploma courses that you could start in, and in many cases you would get guaranteed entry into the degree, so that next step, that undergraduate degree. And in some cases or most cases you may get, of course, full credit, but that's just your plan B. Of course, what you need to do is make sure you research all course possibilities to make an informed decision on your study options, meaning look at the courses that you're interested in, look at all the different institutions that are offering those courses, check out what the entry requirements are so that you, as I said, can make some really informed decisions about what it is that you have listed on your application, of course. When exploring your study options, you should, of course, consider your lifestyle, time spent at work. Most students, especially post-school students, work. I know when I went to uni, I went as a post-school leaver. I was, in my 40s, and I had to juggle, of course, my family, full-time work, and, of course, my studies. And that's always a bit of a hard juggling act. for especially for parents and so on. And, some of the things that you will need to consider when it comes to that is, of course, um, is the course that you're interested in offered both full time or part time? I know for me, and it could be for a lot of you, part time study is one of the things that can be key to your success. Full time study is a lot. Is the course delivered online or on campus? That's another key point as well. Not all courses are offered or delivered online. Some universities' courses, of course, are delivered both online and on campus. So when you do your research, make sure you look at how the course is delivered. That's a really big one. And if it's an on campus, is there a flexible timetable? Sometimes in the first year of your studies, it could be less flexible than once you go forth into your second and third years. Um, apart from that, of course, when we talk or thinking about juggling all those priorities, um, full-time study or study in full, is a hard thing. Full-time work is what, 35, 40 hours? But full-time study, if for most institutions, they're expecting you to put in at least 12 hours of study per course. That's why looking at courses that may be part-time could be just the ticket for you if you've got to juggle multiple tasks that you have in your life. And let's face it, post-school applicants all have to work to get themselves fed and clothed and all the rest of it. So some of these things are real life situations that we need to think about when taking on study. All right. So, are the considerations that most universities will, advise you is about those hours of study that you'll need to put in, of course. And of course, you can find course information online through the UAC website. Once you go into the course search, you'll find all the different courses that you're looking for. And once you click on each course, it will give you a little bit of information around some entry, some things about additional selection criteria, and so forth. But for a lot more information, of course, of more general information around entry, you, of course, need to get on to the university websites because they have handbooks and all sorts of things. One of the things that I always even talk to Year 12 students about, it's a really good idea to get onto the uni websites and look at their handbook to check out the actual content of the course that you may be studying. It's also one way of being able to differentiate the courses between institutions as well, because they might have a slightly different content from institution to institution. All right. Of course, if we move on, some of the additional selection criteria that might be around post-school leavers could be things such as questionnaires and portfolios, in addition to academia or academic records. And of course, once again, you can check that out on the UAC website or, of course, on the university website. Now, what are your chances of being selected? We get asked this quite a lot. Now, when you look at any of the information on the UAC website, you'll always find things like the lowest ATAR, the highest ATAR, the lowest selection rank, and so forth. And that information is really addressing Year 12 entry. Okay, for post-school leavers, it can be slightly different. And we can't actually publish what it is that the number that you need because you don't know what your number is. Because lots of post-school leavers have lots of different study, and I'll get into that in a minute. But of course, for most post-school applicants, selection is based on, of course, quite a number of things. It could be, of course, your ATAR from when you were at school. It could be certificate 3s, 4s. It could be a diploma. We can use advanced diplomas. It could be work experience. It could be a part of everything. It could even be partial completion of a bachelor's degree. Now, that's for, of course, undergraduate study. If it's postgraduate study you are looking for, then of course you would need, of course, a relevant undergraduate degree. In some cases, it may be if you're looking at, say, a graduate diploma or certificate. In some cases, they might not want something like a diploma or so forth, or an undergraduate degree. It could be just relevant work experience. But that is the decision of the institution, the university itself. And once again, it would be you contacting them to find out what the minimum entry requirement would be. But if we're looking at undergraduate study, the minimum requirement is year 12. If not, it then, of course, could be diploma, certificate 4, certificate 3. Now, in saying that, not many universities will look at certificate 3s for entry. So a certificate 4 is a lot better, and of course a diploma even better again, depending on the course you're wanting to get into. Now, as I said, when you look at the information on the UAC website, you'll find things like lowest selection rank, lowest ATARs, and so forth. Now, you can look at that as a post-school leaver, and although you won't be able to know, oh, yes, I've got that, and that's going to get me in, it will tell you about the competitive nature of the course. So the higher the ATAR requirement, the higher demand that course has. So the more competitive it is to get in. So you want to make yourself as competitive as possible for entry. We have a question.
Someone's asking, will subject/school awards such as the Ducks Award in their school still be relevant for post-school?
Okay, so the question is, will such things like being ducks of my school when I was at school, or having really fantastic grades and getting probably alluding to adjustment points come into play? No, they won't. Once you're out of school, no sort of adjustments in terms of performing in certain HSC courses or being ducks of the school is really relevant. However, just to check, it'd be good to contact the university that you're interested in, just to make sure that they don't have something for you based on that. But with my experience, I've never seen a post-school leaver, receiving any adjustments to their entry based on those criteria. Okay, so one of the things, of course, we did talk about that they do use for entry on top of, in general, on top of course, your academic record, is employment experience. Now, if it's employment experience, you would need 12 months of full-time paid employment for it to even be assessed by us for entry. And you would need to, of course, provide a statement of service from your employer, laying out information such as how long you've worked there with dates, how many hours per week you perform your duties, what kind of duties you perform, and so forth. It would need to be on their letterhead, and it would need to be signed off by either your HR or boss. So that is one thing that I will put out there, because we do get lots of questions about employment experience and what is or isn't in. Now, it doesn't have to be employment experience in the studies that you're wanting to take in, like in the same field of study. It can be anything that you are doing. All right, another thing that you will need, especially for those wanting to go into nursing or are new to the country, you need to meet the English language criteria. That's sort of like the first hurdle. Minimum is year 12, of course, year 12 English. If, of course, you have done studies overseas and your first language is not English, then of course you will need to provide an English language test. For others, if you've done studies here at TAFE or you've got your Year 12, then that should cover it. If you're applying for nursing, of course, there are special requirements around that, and it is that you would need at least to have been studying in English, with 2 years of that being from high school. But I'll get into that in a moment. Now, some of the questions that we do get asked is, well, I've got a Certificate 3, I've got, a Certificate 4, I've got a diploma and so forth. What is that worth to me? How do I figure out what's going to be used for entry? Now, what I can tell you is that when you put your application in through UAC, and we'll go through that in a minute, you will have to list all studies, whether they are complete or not, on your application. It's part of you declaring all studies that you have either started or completed. Now, when you list all your qualifications, and it could be 1, it could be 5, it could be more than that. We will, of course, assess every single qualification and rank them accordingly to our assessment guidelines. So just be aware of that. Now, some universities, when they do this assessment or when they are considering post-school students, they will either say we are looking at the most recent qualification, or they're looking at the highest ranked qualification, or they could be taking a mixture of all qualifications. So that's why we can't say you definitely need this and you definitely need that, because each and every post-school applicant has different qualifications to be assessed on. But what I can tell you is that with TAFE or with any certificate or diploma, so that is Certificate 3, 4 or diploma, or even an associate diploma that you may attain from TAFE or a private college, they are usually competency-based. So when you for instance, a Certificate 3 would give you a rank of around 67, a Certificate 4 a 73, a diploma a 75, and an advanced diploma at 76. All right, so that's just a bit of an overall. That's what they will look at. For part qualifications, so qualifications that haven't been completed, it could be less. If they were, of course, qualifications that had grades to them, then it could be higher. So that's why it's hard to say you are definitely going to get in on X, Y, and Z, because you may have multiple, you may have one. It's really going to be, at the end of the day, up to each institution to set their entry requirements. We just make offers to students if they meet the entry that the universities require, basically. All right, now let's move on to talk about credit. That's another thing that we get asked about a lot is, will I get credit for the studies that I've taken on? Now, in some cases you may, and in some cases you may not. In general, you would have to have a qualification of a diploma or higher for it to be considered for credit. All right, so it'd have to be a diploma or higher. Some universities, of course, have articulation programs with TAFE where if you've got a diploma, you may get full credit, but that's not all and every diploma. And it has to relate to the degree you're going into, of course. But each institution will, of course, set their own policies about credit. And you cannot ever find out if you're going to get credit for the studies you've taken on until you've been made an offer to the university. So once you've applied to university, once you've got made or have been made an offer and you enroll, you would then, of course, have to apply with the institution for credit for prior studies. So it's a little bit of a process. You will never really find out about this before you take on the study. You have to get an offer first before they will make any decisions around that credit. So yes, it does happen, but not until you've been made an offer and you're enrolled and you've applied with the school. So that's credit. It's a tricky one, but of course, other credit that you may be considered for, we get asked this a lot as well, is that I'm already actually studying, but I want to change institutions. I want to go into the same course. Am I going to get full study? Not necessarily. Sorry, full credit. Not necessarily. So from institution to institution, they'll look over what you've completed. And if it resembles whatever it is that they offer, then they may give you credit. But generally, I have not really seen a student get full credit for what they've already studied if they're moving institutions. Now, my voice is a little croaky this evening, so I really do apologise for that, but I'm going to take a bit of a sip of a drink so that I don't sound too bad. All right, so let us talk about students or further qualifications, but for students who maybe have come into the country who are domestic students and have, of course, international qualifications. So that could be a Year 12 qualification, it could be some university studies, it could be from a college and so forth. Not all international qualifications will be accepted for entry here in Australia, so just be aware of that. To find out whether yours is or not, you could, of course, contact UAC, so our customer service people will be able to help you and guide you through that. You, of course, if you have only got international studies, will need that English language test. So that's also something you will need to provide. And when you are providing your supporting documents for your studies that you've completed or partially completed overseas, if it's in a different language, then you will need to get those academic records translated from a NAATI translator. So be aware of that as well. All the information around that is on the UAC website. And when you put in all the details onto your application, it will certainly advise you that you do need to upload all those supporting documents. So that would be a transcript, your testamer, things of that nature, so that we can make a full assessment of your qualifications. Now, that goes for everybody. If you have applied and you have got TAFE qualifications, then in general, UAC can retrieve those qualifications directly from TAFE, so you won't have to provide it. If you've studied in a university, a big public university, from across the country, then you don't need to provide that information either. We'll get your academic record directly from them. If you've studied in a private college, of course, then yes, you would need to provide your academic record, so your testamer and transcripts and those certain things. And you'll just upload them to the UAC website, or to the UAC application, I should say, not the website. All right, when it comes to university, of course, a lot of people also ask about the cost of university. Now, for domestic students, first of all, if you are an international student, and that is that you are not a permanent resident of Australia, you're not a permanent resident with a humanitarian visa, so someone with a humanitarian visa, or Australian citizen, you're not Australian citizen, or you're not a New Zealand citizen, then you would be classified as an international student and you would apply directly to each institution. But everybody else applies through UAC. And when you're applying, you are applying mostly for what we call a Commonwealth supported place, a CSP place. That actually means that the government pays for part of your tuition and you, the student, will pay the other half, which is called the student contribution. So once again, it's a Commonwealth supported place. The government will pay, let's say, part of the application, well, not the application, part of the course fees, and you, the applicant, will pay the other part of the course fees, or the student contribution. Students who or potential students who are Australian citizens or on a humanitarian visa, you, of course, can apply for what we call a HEX help loan, meaning that you can put off paying your fees until after you've, finished your course and started working and started making a certain amount of money that the government specifies that, yes, now it's time for you to start paying your fees back. Now, how do you do that? Once you're working, of course, you would tell your payroll officer that, you've got a HEX loan, and they will start taking the money out of your wages before tax and paying that money back to the government. So it's all through the tax system, which is, pretty good actually, because you don't notice that it comes out. I know that when I did mine, I didn't notice it coming out because it came out before the tax, which was fantastic, but it is a HEX help loan. Now, there are other courses called domestic fee paying, so that's a full fee paying course. Once again, you can get fee help on those, of course, and it's the same sort of scenario. Although you're paying more for the course, you can still put it through this fee help loan, and you'll pay it back through the tax system once you start being paid a certain amount of money in wages. So that's always interesting. One thing to take note of course, is that, the government indexes that, so it does go up as you go along. Now, each area of study has a different prescription of fees, and you can find all the information about the fees for each course. So it could be if you're doing teaching or nursing, you're paying a lot less than someone who may be studying law or medicine or so forth. So if you go on to the website Study Assist, it tells you all about Commonwealth supported places. It tells you about the prescribed student contribution that you would pay per year, and it will tell you, the different fields of study and the costs associated. So that is Study Assist, and there's a lot of information on their website. All right, so let's talk about the application process. We know now, of course, that you need to find out what the entry requirements are. You need to, of course, know what kind of courses that you might be considering. You need to know when they're being offered and so forth. At this time of year, however, we are getting to the end of that semester 2 entry. We do have some universities with trimesters, so they may be giving offers still for the next few months. But of course, applications for all institutions for undergraduate study opened in April. And they opened in April for semester 2 entry and this year, and semester 1 entry for 2025. You can use the application for both or just one. It's really up to you how you work it. But the closing date for semester 2 entry for undergraduate study is just about finished, and it does have various closing dates for courses. So if you're still thinking maybe I can get in for now, as long as you've got all your studies in order, all your documents in order and so forth, then you can go on and have a look as to when those courses close for entry for semester 2. But for the majority of students at this time of year, they're really looking at entry for 2025. So 2025. For postgraduate study, applications will open for next year in September. So I don't have the specific date for that at this stage, but I do know it's usually in September sometime. Now, going back to undergraduate study, and I'm going to have a little sip again, sorry. We would certainly suggest that students looking at study for next year get their application in before what we call early bird close. And early bird close means that if you apply after the 30th of September, that's the early bird closing date, that you will be paying a higher I'm not going to say higher, it is a higher fee, but it's the flat fee of $215 to put that application in. If you apply before the 30th of September, of course, you're paying the early bird fee of $80. Now, like when I talk to year 12 students, people might say, well, I'm not really quite sure what I want to put on my application. I would always say, don't worry too much. Just put your application in with at least one course preference, because you can go back in later on and add preferences or remove them or change them around. So as long as you get it in by the 30th of September to get that early bird fee, then you're all set for listing preferences right up until February next year. Now, the next important date for many students will be, of course, the 18th of December. So this is undergraduate entry. And why I say the 18th of December, because you need to have your preferences in order by that date to be considered for a university offer on the 23rd of December. Now, there are offer rounds prior to this. However, not every institution will make offers prior to that 23rd of December date, but on the 23rd of December date, all universities are giving offers, and we give out, something like nearly 60,000 offers. So when you put your application in, don't be surprised if you're not made an offer until that 23rd of December offer round. Now, you can keep checking your application, or you can just check your emails. We will send you out information if you do get an offer, but don't be surprised if it's not until then. For TAFE students, so if you're at TAFE now looking at university entry for next year, you're probably more likely to be waiting until January 9 to get an offer, mainly because we'll be waiting for your end of year results to come into us so that we can give you a full assessment to be considered on for entry. So that would be the 9th of January that you'd be waiting on getting an offer into university based on those studies that you are completing this year. Now, after the 9th of January, we've got 4 or 5 more offer rounds. We have 2 per month, every month, right up until March. So, you can, of course, open yourself up for an offer each offer round. But if you go onto the UAC website, you will find all the key dates. So we'll have things like you should apply by a certain date to be considered in whatever offer round is coming next. But once again, really, you should be getting your application in by the 30th of September just to get that early bird fee. And then, of course, also on the key dates page, you'll have when you need to get all your documentation in for your qualifications to be assessed in time for the offer round. You'll also get the close of preference date. So when you have to have your preferences in order to be considered in the next offer round. And of course, it will have the offer round dates as well. So go onto the UAC website. There is a PDF copy of the key dates, which is easy to print off or keep on your computer so that you can keep up to date with what's going on. We've got another question.
Is asking if all their current course preferences are for courses starting in semester 2 of this year and they don't receive an offer, will they be able to change their preferences for courses that start next year in the same application cycle?
Okay, really good question from Future. And that is, if you've got an application in now for semester 2 entry and you're not made an offer for semester 2 entry, can she or you change your preferences and have courses on there that reflect semester 1 2025 entry? And yes, you absolutely can. You just go onto the manage your preferences area and change your preferences around, and make sure whatever it is that you're choosing has, of course, the right closing date for you. So yes, absolutely you can do that. Great question, and something that we do get asked a lot. When it comes to the application itself, of course, the application is done all online. Now, if you went to school here in New South Wales, or even in another state, you will know when you were in year 12, you got login details to go into the UAC website and create your account. Once you're out of school, those numbers are no longer valid. So if you're, let's say, a HSC student last year and now this year you're applying for next year, those numbers are not relevant for the application itself. So when you go onto the UAC website, you'll find the homepage, and at the top right-hand corner, you'll find an area where it says log in, apply or log in. From there, you'll go to the undergraduate part of the drop-down box, click on there to start an application. So those numbers that you had in year 12, don't worry about it. If you were not a HSC student in this country, you're a year 12 student, and you didn't have numbers and you don't know what I'm talking about, please don't worry. When you start your application, the application will automatically generate a UAC number and UAC PIN as you go along. But when you get onto the website, you will need, of course, personal details and so forth. You will need what we call a USI, or a unique student identifier. Those post-school people out there who've already got some study under your belt, you would already have one. If you've not done any study whatsoever, then you may not have one. So just check or go onto the USI website and you can create an account there. But USIs are used for all sorts of things. So you could have just done like a St. John's ambulance first aid certificate. You would have had a USI. So you do get a USI for many things because it links you with all your studies and even HECSTET in some cases. So you will need to just go online to the UAC website. You will, of course, create your account. You'll have to register, so you'll put in your email address, create a password, and then verify that email address, and then from there move on to, of course, create your account. We'll ask you to put in your email address and password, and then you'll get asked if you are a current school leaver. No, you're not, of course. And then from there on, you'll go in to fill in all your personal details, name, address, date of birth, those types of things. And then after you've filled out that first part of the application, it will create the UAC number and PIN for you. And then, of course, you'll be asked about your academic record, and you'll fill in your secondary studies, your tertiary studies, so that's your TAFE qualifications or private college qualifications, or if you've done some university studies, it'll be that. And then you'll go on to, of course, put in things like employment experience or so forth. So that is that. When the applications open, I'll go back to the application itself again. And I'm sorry for this. I meant to say, and I didn't. When you do lodge your application, you can list up to 5 course preferences on the application. So that could be, of course, the same course at 5 different universities. It could be 5 different courses at one university, or anything in between. It's really up to you what it is that you want to study. But when you put those 5 course preferences in, you can, of course, change them around as many times as you like throughout the whole process. Now, when the applications opened, so did the access schemes. One of the access schemes I want to tell you about is the Educational Access Scheme. And this Educational Access Scheme is part of the uni application. There is a link to it. But this is a special consideration application for students who've experienced some difficulties throughout their studies, where it has affected your grades. Now, whether that be at school, when you're at school, if you've only got your ATAR, or whether it's been whilst you're been studying in a TAFE or private college or whatever it is. So it's about the studies that you've completed, the circumstances around the difficulties you've had, and so forth, where it has affected those grades. So, as I said, special consideration. Now, there's many different areas of circumstances that you can apply under. So there are things like long-term medical or disability. It could be refugee status. It could be financial hardship. It could be your home environment. Could be all sorts of things. But there's like 8 or 9 different categories that can be considered under, and students or potential students can look at each and every category and, of course, tick the box to all the different categories that pertain to your circumstances. Now, once you have lodged that application, it is part of a uni application, but it's like an application within an application. So once you've lodged it, it will ask you to, of course, download the document package, and then you will need to provide supporting documentation. So the documents more widely used are things such as an applicant statement, a medical impact statement, which of course should come from a medical practitioner. It could be an educational impact statement. So if you've got a lecturer or a teacher wherever it is that you studied that could fill that out for you, would be fantastic, because they would understand how your circumstances have, made it difficult for you in your studies. So these are some of the requirements, but it could be things like illegal documents or visa types and things like this. So just look at the document package and then upload the required documents to that application, which would be fantastic. Now, you don't have to upload the documents as soon as you apply. You do have time for that, and you've got until about mid-November to get those documents in, so that we get them all assessed in time for those December 23rd offer round and going forward. So now, what will this application do for you? What happens is that once we've assessed it, the universities all have different guidelines, but they may just look at this application and take it into consideration. In many cases, they leave spots open for students who have had some extenuating circumstances. Sometimes they may just add some adjustment to your selection rank for entry. So you may just get over the line into the course that you are wanting. Now, it's not a guarantee of entry, of course, but as I said, it may just get you over the line. Now, their educational access scheme, there's only 7 institutions that do not give EAS consideration, educational access scheme, to applicants who are currently undertaking or have previously undertaken tertiary studies. My voice is going, it's terrible. I think I'm getting laryngitis, so I apologise for that. The institutions who don't look at this would be, of course, ANU, Charles Sturt, New England, Sydney, Wollongong, UNSW and Western Sydney. So have a look again on the UAC website, and there'll be a full details about the educational access scheme there. The other scheme that's open for post-school leavers, and that is equity scholarships. This is about financial hardship and assisting students who do need that hand or financial hand whilst attending university, of course. This is open to all current university students or students like yourself who will be applying to get into university. The application is separate to your uni application. It is all just done online, but in general, you need to be, of course, getting Centrelink benefits of some kind or be able to demonstrate your financial hardship. So sometimes students, may need to provide other supporting documents other than just a CRN number about their Centrelink benefits. There are, of course, other criteria that you can apply under, such as, you're a sole parent, you're getting carer support payments, long-term medical or disability, how that's affecting you going forward into your studies and so forth. But all the criteria for this is, of course, once again, listed on the UAC website. And I'd really encourage you to have a look at them. Of course, with scholarships, this is not just the only scholarship we have. The universities have millions of dollars to give away. And of course, it's an application directly to each institution that you are considering. In many cases, the application from institution to institution is quite similar. And in many cases, they're going to ask you to write about yourself and about your commitment to your study and why you want to go into certain degrees and so forth. As I said, it's an application direct with each institution or each university that you're looking at. And I would highly recommend you get onto their websites to find their scholarship page and apply for everything, okay? Don't think, they're never going to select me because, I haven't got the greatest grades or what have you. Just apply. Let them make the decision, because some of these scholarships can be anything up to, $50,000, $60,000. And that would be really nice to help a student out whilst they're going to uni, especially those like yourself who, of course, work, juggling all sorts of other things in your life. All right, so let's quickly talk about preferences. This is something we get asked about all the time, and I have almost really alluded to it throughout our conversation this evening. But when you apply through UAC, you can list up to 5 course preferences, as I said. So once again, it could be the same course at 5 different universities. It could be 5 different courses at one university or anything in between. But of course, the university preference or the course preference that are all listed in the UAC website will all have what we call a course code next to it. Now, the course code, and I'm telling you this because a lot of people ask, well, what does that mean when you're putting a preference on? Each course code tells us the name of the course, the university that the course has been offered, and the campus. So let's say, for instance, and I'm going to pick on nursing, you might see on the course preferences, ACU has 3 Bachelor of Nursing courses. But if you have a look at the course code, they're all different. Even though it's the same course and the same university, and it tells us that in the course code, it also is different from course to course because they've got 3 different campuses that you can study it on. Okay, so you've got to look out when you look at the information on the course search of the UAC website. Make sure that you're selecting the right course code for the campus that you want to be on, especially with those institutions that have multiple campuses. So once again, 5 course preferences. Check out the course code because that's going to, you're going to be putting 5 of those numbers basically on your application. With your preferences, you can change them around as many times as you like throughout the whole process. You just need to, of course, check the close of preference dates and offer dates. So you can change, of course, your preferences between each offer round if you wish to. It's really up to you. Now, of course, when it comes to offers, you must meet the entry requirements to be, given an offer. All right. So when you list your course preferences, they need to be in order of your preference. So with your dream course as your first preference, always your dream course. And then after that, you're going to list other courses that you would study that would help you get you to where you want to be. All right. So, for instance, let's say you got an offer to your second course preference, we would always say, like, accept it straight away, all right, because it's in your course preferences. It must have been there because you thought about it, but accept that course preference straight away, all right. And then if you wish to be considered again in the next offer round, then there's some steps you need to take. But you must meet the entry requirements for the course that you're wanting to get into. So if you got made an offer to your second preference, it means at the time of offers, you didn't meet the requirements for your first preference, all right? So that's why you weren't made an offer to that course. We have one question, so we'll just wait for that to come in.
Ross has apologised because he's joined late. He's uncertain if you have covered this already, but are university standings, I think he means rankings by that terminology, taken into account when calculating a GPA? For example, would an ANU law degree credit be less than an online provider's high distinction?
Okay. Ross has asked about university rankings and grades, and whether when we look at the GPA to determine what kind of assessment we make on the qualification, does it make a difference? So say, for instance, if he got an A in a Bachelor of Law at a particular university with a high ranking, would it still equate to the same assessment for a Bachelor of Law grade A at online course, for instance? Yes, Ross, it would be assessed all the same. We don't take university rankings into consideration whatsoever. It is all the same to us. It all depends on your GPA and so forth. You can find a lot of information on our website about GPAs if you'd like to go there and have a look, Ross. But no, I didn't cover that, so thank you for asking the question. Going back to offers, to be made an offer, of course, is really what we're talking about. Meeting the entry requirements first. You must, of course, have supplied all your academic transcripts and test tamers and things for us to make a full assessment of each qualification that you may have. Remembering that TAFE results we can get automatically and university results we can get automatically, so you don't need to provide that. But remembering with TAFE, if you're completing at the end of this year, we won't get those transcripts until January, so you won't be considered for an offer until January. But also another thing you need to understand is that you can only get one offer in the offer round, all right? So when we show all the offer rounds in those key dates, it's only one offer per offer round. Now, if you're a postgraduate, like you're looking at postgraduate study, you can get more than one offer, but it can only be one offer per institution in an offer round. And that's because it's a slightly different system to an undergraduate. Going further on to talk about offers, if, let's say, in December, you got an offer to one of your course preferences, as I said earlier, you should accept it, all right, because there's no guarantee of another offer. Now, if you want to be considered for another course or for one of your other preferences or what have you, because you've changed your mind or so forth, what you would need to do is remove the current offer that you've got off your preference list. So, as I said, we say accept it. Now, accept it straight away. Why? Because offers can lapse. So if you left that offer there and didn't do anything with it for a few weeks, the university might just say, well, they've not accepted it, so we're going to take it away. So accept it straight away, all right? Then, of course, if you want to be considered for something else, remove that offer from your preference list, okay? Remove it from your preference list. It's not going anywhere. You've accepted it. You've done what you need to do. Rearrange your course preferences by the next close of preference date to then have your application with all 5 preferences be considered again in the next offer round. Okay? So once again, if you get an offer in one offer round, accept it if you want to straight away. If you want to be considered again, you need to remove that current offer off your preference list, rearrange them by the close of preference date, and then we will consider all 5 preferences that you may have listed for the next offer round. Now, why do we say remove it? The reason why you need to remove it, because it acts like a block. All right. So if you got an offer in the first round to your first preference, okay, if you don't remove it, but you still want to be considered for something else, when the system comes along, because it's all automated, the system will look at you and say, well, hang on, no, this student has already got an offer to their highest listed eligible preference, so we'll move to the next student. All right. So it acts like a block. So that's why we say accept the offer that you got, remove it from your preference list, rearrange them. You can add them, take them off, whatever you need to do, and then be considered for all course preferences in the next offer round. Fantastic. One thing I did want to mention, if you're a student who's applying for medicine, of course, offers for medicine do not go out until January. So just be aware of that as well, because as you may know, if you're applying for medicine, you've got a lot more criteria such as interview and so forth. So, the universities are conducting those interviews in that late December and sometimes in early January. So January is when you'd be waiting for an offer. But if you've got other courses, listed as 4 and 5, because there is 3 undergraduate medical programs that you can put on that application, you can still be made an offer to preference 4 and 5 in the earlier offer rounds. So that's one thing to note, and I meant to mention that earlier, so I'm sorry about that. All right, so I think that's almost it. We've been online for a long time now. You must be sick of my croaky voice, but a couple of top tips, and that would be please research all the entry requirements. You can certainly, I've certainly given you some basics. The minimum is year 12 qualification with an ATAR, or it could be a certificate 4 or diploma. It could be a certificate 3 with some institutions, but not many, and it depends on the course. So really research those entry requirements. Supply all the supporting documents that we need. Get them to us as quickly as you can so that we can get your application assessed as quickly as possible. Apply on time, like get your application in by that 30th of September to get it in the early bird, period. If you apply after that, that's absolutely okay. It's not first in, best dressed, but it's just that you're going to be paying the flat fee for entry. Track the opening and closing dates. That's really important. Don't miss those dates. We do put things up on social media all the time. We are going to have this dedicated space for post-school leavers to ask their questions. So I hope you go there and join us, and we'll give you the answers to everything that you need to know. Make sure you leave your options open and explore all course possibilities. So, always have that dream course that you want, and then look at other courses that you may be interested that will get you to where you want to be. So it could be that maybe, let's say you're wanting to get into law, going back to Ross's scenario, you might want to get into law, but you don't quite make it. What is it that you need to do? Well, maybe a Bachelor of Arts would be good. You would need to then study for a full year and then try and do an internal transfer into that law course. Or sometimes it could be that you got into the single degree and you want the double, you can do that as well. But of course, it is an internal transfer. If it was that you didn't get your course that you wanted, but you got into a different university, at the same course at a different university, start there. If you then study for a year, and then you feel, no, I still want to go to that university, that other university, then you would have to apply back through UAC to be considered all over again. So that's just a few little top tips. Once again, I would like to thank you for joining me tonight, but also remind you that we do have our fantastic post-school event happening called Career Moves. It's being held in the Sydney CBD at Dalton House at Hyde Park there on the 12th. It's Thursday, the 12th of September, between 4 p.m. and 7:30 p.m. We're going to have door prizes and, you know, all sorts of things. But our institutions will be there to take on your questions, and I'll be there and my colleagues will be there to help you with anything you need to know about the application process and anything else that you might need to know. It is a free event. Absolutely. Thank you, Georgia. It's a free event. So please join us for some afternoon tea, some information, maybe a little bit of music. We'll see what happens going forward. But yes, all our big institutions will be there. We'll also have people like Teach New South Wales, if you're thinking about really changing your career, Engineers Australia, a few other fantastic industry associations. Once again, thank you for joining me. Also, check out our Facebook page, which will have the link to Career Moves and any of our other social media channels. Once again, thanks for joining us. Have a good night. Cheers. Bye.